It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
How the hell did they win that game? How the hell did Edwin Diaz, who gave us all about 15 heart attacks in one inning, how did he survive? I have to pinch myself. Welcome to what is, at least for me, an instant reaction. Rico Brogna, episode 543. If you're consuming this live on YouTube, it's actually multiple hours after the Mets held on and beat the Cincinnati Reds. But I was on DVR. I was a little delayed, and I just finished and consumed the New York Mets heart-stopping, kind of stunning, thank God they didn't blow it, 5-4 victory over the Cincinnati Reds. If you've had a chance to sleep on this game and you downloaded the Rico Brogna on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, it's probably sunk in for you. But for me, I still can't believe that Edwin Diaz escaped this. And we've seen Edwin Diaz escape jams before. It's one of the things I love about him. I don't think he gets overwhelmed by the moment. Maybe back in 2019, I thought that. But in 2025, I never think Edwin Diaz is consumed by the moment. And he's one of those guys who is certainly capable of walking the bases loaded and then striking the next three guys out. He didn't exactly do that, but he came relatively close. And I think what made this more stunning isn't just your typical, he has a one-run lead, he loads the bases, and he finds a way to get out of it. I think it's everything in the three outs that he recorded that still stunned me. So we'll start at the very end of this game, and I'll give you some more thoughts about everything else that happened throughout it. But he loads up the bases, especially after a four-pitch walk to TJ Friedl, in which he cannot throw strikes. He had absolutely zero fastball command, which we've seen before by Edwin. And sometimes on days like that, he controls his slider well, and you just want him to rely on his slider. But he gives up the base hit to Ke'Bryan Hayes. He walks Matt McLain after he gets ahead of him, which was frustrating as all hell. And he walks TJ Friedl. And now the Reds have the bases loaded, only down by a run, one skinny run, as Gary Cohen likes to call it. But here are the things about him getting these three outs that I still can't wrap my head around. Number one, he goes 3-2 to Marte and throws a slider that never slid and a pitch that is clearly ball four. And yet somehow Noelvi Marte does Edwin Diaz a favor, does all of us a favor, even though in the moment it sort of felt like a stay in execution, and he swings through an absolutely dreadful slider. A slider that didn't move, a slider that was inside. It should have forced in the tying run. It should have made this a 5-5 game with bases loaded, nobody out, and it probably should have been the end. So break number one, and you're going to need a few when you load up the bases with nobody out, is that. The next thing we get is Edwin Diaz in the middle of an at-bat says, I think my shoe broke. I mean, have we ever seen this? At first, when Edwin Diaz calls, and you knew it wasn't the trainer, so you never thought Edwin Diaz was hurt. You kind of knew, oh, he must have, dirt stuck in his cleats. Okay, and we see that on rainy nights. If it's a rainy, disgusting night, the mound's a mess, sometimes you'll see that from a pitcher where he says, hey, listen, I got some crap in my sneaker or my cleat. Let me clear it out. But what we then see is that he's got to change cleats completely because it broke. And Diaz would explain after the game, oh, yeah, I had a broken cleat. And I kind of felt it in the middle of the inning. But then when it completely broke, I needed to go out and make a change. So we have this delay, which is odd enough, but the timing of the delay is crazy. 1-2, bases loaded. I mean, and I have no idea what this delay is going to do to Diaz or what it's going to do to the batter. No idea. I don't think any of us know. And then you had another delay where Alvarez kind of had to reconfigure his mask and his hat. So even in this pitch clock era where we don't have delays, everything is lightning quick, even a long dramatic inning like that bottom of the ninth inning, we had multiple delays. And then he throws a 1-2 or a 2-2 fastball that is literally right down the middle. I don't know what Ellie De La Cruz was looking for, but again, thank you. I thank the baseball gods because Ellie De La Cruz took a fastball right down the middle. And so Diaz goes from bases loaded, nobody out, to bases loaded, 2 out in the weirdest possible way. But let's all be honest. We're honest around here on the Rico Brogna. I thought they were losing anyway. I thought that Gavin Lux, who, remember, had pinch hit a few innings earlier from Miguel Andujar, I could see it right now. I saw it in my head. He's going to rip a base hit. I thought it would happen with 2 strikes. And Diaz, who it's impossible to kill. Like, I would have done a Rico off a dramatic loss. I would have texted Hoff and said, hey, this is Rico worthy. And I already knew what I was going to say. Like, as Gavin Lux was coming up, I was almost planning, this is what I'm going to say on an emotional Rico Brogna. And that is, hey, Edwin picked a terrible time to blow a game. No question it's bad timing. Opening game of a series against the team you're ahead of. The Giants are red hot. This is bad. I still love Edwin. I still trust Edwin. But my God, he couldn't have picked a worse time to blow a save. So I was fully expecting when Lux came up that he was going to give up the game. And what happens as part of this absolutely drunk inning that made no sense? He rips one over the bag that for a good second and a half I thought was fair. Game over. Goodbye. I was right. And you see foul. It's a foul ball. And Edwin Diaz gets a new life. But we need more craziness because on that 2-1 pitch, he hits the ground ball towards second. And as Luis Angel Acuna, who is so smooth defensively at second base, as he makes the play, are we all not thinking about game 161? I love Edwin Diaz. I do. He has become a true Met, a Met I trust. It doesn't mean he isn't going to blow saves, but I know he's not going to blow a save because the moment's too big. But I keep thinking every time Diaz has to cover first base about game 161, in which his inability to cover first base almost cost the Mets the game, almost cost the Mets a playoff spot. And if that happens, I'm not sure what I'm saying about Edwin Diaz. Like, he did a lot of good things, obviously, in 2022, and he did a lot of good things last year, obviously fighting back from some of his struggles. But I think what has convinced most of us, or put the exclamation point, I guess, on Edwin Diaz's trustworthiness is what he did in game 161 after Lindor hit the home run, coming back out, pitching the bottom of the 9th inning and getting those outs, and then what he did in the postseason, what he did against Milwaukee, what he did against Philadelphia. So none of that happens if the Edwin Diaz non-cover in 161 cost them the game. But I see him racing over. I'm still not sure if Acuna is going to make a good throw. I'm not sure if Diaz is going to catch it. And so that play, that sequence, felt like it took 35 minutes as it was unfolding. And thank God, I'm still stunned it happened. It was executed. And to quote the great late Bob Murphy, the Mets won the damn thing. They won the damn thing. Because it didn't feel like they were going to win the damn thing. And credit to Edwin Diaz for showing stones. Credit to Luis Angel Acuna, who made that play perfectly. Credit to Pete Alonso for just falling on the ground and getting the hell out of the way. And really, again, credit to Edwin Diaz. Because on a night in which he had nothing, he could not command his fastball until he threw a fastball right down the middle to Ellie De La Cruz that for some freaking reason he's not swinging at. On Edwin Diaz's worst day, he escaped a bases loaded, nobody out jam against 2, 3, and 4 of the order. He did it while changing his cleats. He did it while covering first base. He did it with a little bit of luck. He did it with, insanity. But here's where I gotta love Edwin Diaz even more. And I'm not sure how many people are aware of this or if you're going to care as much about this as I do. So when this game ends, I'm on DVR. The beautiful thing about DVR is that the game is over and I can instantly hear from Carlos Mendoza. I don't have to wait. Game ended an hour ago, 2 hours ago. I went right to Diaz. I needed to hear what Edwin Diaz had to say. Forget the cleats. It broke. He changed it, whatever. He was asked specifically about that last play, about getting off the mound as quickly as he did. And let me give you reason number 600. I love Edwin Diaz. Jersey worthy he has now become. Not New Jersey worthy, but Jersey worthy, wearing his jersey. He's asked about getting off the mound on that play. And you know what he brought up? Game 161. Not even kidding you. First thing he said is, I'll never forget 161. I'll never forget that game and not getting off the mound. And quote, I'm never going to let it happen again. His words. His words. And so the thing that haunts us, a thing we probably ponder quite a bit, he himself has addressed and said, not going to let that happen again. And he didn't. And he sprinted off the mound on that play. He covered first. He didn't drop it, Clay Holmes style. And the New York Mets hold on and win a game that in so many ways, despite the ninth inning, like taking the ninth inning away, was such a crazy win. Like they jump out to a 3-0 lead. They jump out to a 4-0 lead. Even after Peterson gives up the run in the third, they make it 5-1 in the fourth inning. And at 5-1 in the fourth inning, with David Peterson getting nothing but groundouts, I'm like, all right, this is going to be like an easy victory. This is going to be a nice, neat, and tidy Friday night W. And unfortunately, I was wrong about that because David Peterson was not going to make this neat and tidy as he ran into trouble, giving up 3 consecutive base hits in the fourth inning and turning what was a comfortable 5-1 lead into a 5-4 game. Stop right there. It's 5-4 going into the top of the fifth inning. Did anybody in their right mind, knowing Peterson's recent struggles, knowing the Met bullpen, did anybody think at 5-4 after 4, that's enough? They'll win the game 5-4. If you claim that you thought, oh, no problem, they'll win 5-4, you're a damn liar. There's no way you thought that. I didn't think that. I thought to myself, okay, this Met offense has scored 5 runs in the first 4 innings. I feel good about how clutch they've been recently. They'll tack on more runs. So I wasn't negative about winning the game. I was more negative that 5 would be enough. Because did we really think after Peterson had that fourth inning that the Mets were going to be able to get 15 outs with a 1-run lead? I didn't think that. And knowing what we know now, that the Met offense would fail in numerous opportunities to break the game open, the idea that David Peterson would get, how many more outs did he get? He got 4 more outs, so not that many. Did pitch into the 6th inning, which is nice. And then Ryan Stanek, Brooks Raley, Tyler Rogers, and Edwin Diaz would just shut the Cincinnati Reds out. I didn't see that one coming. Now, as far as the offense is concerned, I've said this a lot recently. I'll say it again. It's very difficult to ever nitpick their struggles because they're scoring a lot of runs. So instead, I'll nitpick one individual guy, the early leader in the net negative category. And of course, it's my guy, Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso left a country on base in this game. Goes all the way back to the first inning. 2 on, nobody out. He strikes out. 2 on, 2 out in the second. Strikes out. Comes up with a runner on second. 2 outs in the fourth. Grounds out. Comes up with 2 on and 1 out in the sixth. And he bounces into a double play. A very off day for Pete Alonso. He has had a great year. He's had an incredibly clutch year. He's been hot recently, especially when you look back 2 days ago when he hit multiple home runs. But this was an off night. Now, that sucks. But the good news was Francisco Lindor got on base 5 times. He walked 3 times, got hit by a pitch, and had that 2-out double that led to the Mets' 5th run, what turned out to be the game-winning run. And Juan Soto continues to rake. He came up small in one particular spot in the 8th inning when he came up with with 2 on and 2 out. It felt as if they were pitching around him, and Soto had the count 3-0, took a curveball down the middle on 3-0, got a fat fastball on 3-1, and missed it, rolled it over, grounded out to second base. Could have been big, but somehow this Met bullpen, and kudos to them, did an outstanding job. It wasn't easy. And let's go piece by piece with this. First, let me start with David Peterson. I don't even know how to grade this. Like, it's significantly better than what he did last week. So that's a positive. He pitched into the 6th inning, which nobody essentially does on this team unless your name is Nolan McLean. So that's a positive. But obviously the negative is you give him a 5-1 lead, you give him a 4-0 lead, and it took him very little amounts of time to almost give the entire thing up. That's kind of the negative around Peterson's performance. But after he gives up the 3 runs in the 4th inning, he comes out and throws a really efficient 1-2-3 5th inning to the point where with a pitch count of 70-5, I was certainly thinking, wow, I mean, he could, with a good 6th, start the 7th. And you look at the Met bullpen, even though it's rested. So this is the most rested it'll be coming off an off day. You look at this bullpen and you see who's in it. They just added Wander Suaro, yippity-doo-dah. They still have Justin Hagenman in this bullpen. They still have Kevin Herget in this bullpen. Who do you trust? Like, if you have a 1-run lead, which obviously this was, and you're trying to find 9 outs or 11 outs, as turned out to be the case in this game, where are you going to get them? And when I look at who was used by Carlos Mendoza, you don't have to like Ryan Stanek. I don't think any of us trust him. But again, if you're going to make a ranking list of the 8 guys or the 9 guys now in the Mets bullpen, because temporarily with Senga in the minor leagues and the addition of Suaro, they, for now, this will change Sunday, have 5 starting pitchers and 9 relievers. But let's look at the 9 relievers. How would you rank them in terms of trust? Edwin Diaz, easily number 1. Well, they used him. He came in, as we talked about, made it exciting, got the 3 outs, but he's clearly number 1 on the trust list. Who's number 2? You want to go Brooks Raley? That's who I'd say. Well, Brooks Raley came in, top of the order of the 7th inning, and was freaking awesome. Weak ground out, back-to-back strikeouts. So far on our ranking list of trust, Mendy used both of them. Let's go to number 3. I'd say number 3 is clearly Tyler Rogers, who I trust so much. Hoff will tell you, I picked him up in our fantasy league after Pete released him. And I said, I trust you, Tyler Rogers, to a degree. I mean, it's not full blindfold trust, but it's a decent amount of trust. And they used Tyler Rogers. Got through the infield hit he gave up to Gavin Lux, in which Rogers almost fielded it. It was soft contact. Got a big strikeout. Got lucky on a line drive that looked like was going down the line for a double. Thank God it didn't, because it probably would have tied the game. But he gets through the 8th inning. So he used what I think are the top 3 trust guys. And I think they're easily the top 3 trust guys. Diaz, Raley, and Rogers. I'd admit that after you get past those 3, there's a big drop-off when it comes to trust, right? Huge drop-off. But if you had to pick someone at number 4, who is it? It ain't Gregory Soto. Not the way he's pitched recently. I can't give it to Kevin Herget or Justin Hagenman or Wander Suaro, and no one in their right mind is giving it to Ryan Helsley. So Ryan Stanek, Fat Thor, as some of our emailers have called him, he's next on the list. I mean, it's as crazy as that is. And I hold out hope that maybe Ryan Stanek, who was effective in the playoffs last year after having a bad year, maybe Ryan Stanek's now going to go throw out his best baseball of the year. He didn't make it easy. He came into a tricky spot with 2 on and 1 out, but look what he did. He struck out Will Benson, overcame a pass ball by Francisco Alvarez. He did walk Brian Hayes when he was ahead of him, but then strikes out Matt McClain. Stanek, multiple strikeouts, got the 2 big outs they needed. I don't trust them, but in terms of who's in this bullpen, I think we'd have to admit he's 4th. So I thought Mendy went to all the guys that you could possibly trust to get this win. That's the good news. The bad news is I don't know how many of them are going to be available in game 2 of this series. Edwin Diaz is probably not going to be available. Brooks Raley hasn't pitched many, if at all, on back-to-backs. So I'd assume Stanek and Rogers would be, but the rest of the bullpen you do not trust. None of us do. But to their credit, they got the job done. It was good to see Francisco Alvarez back. Did have a base hit in this game. Did commit a pretty bad pass ball, so that was a negative. But definitely good to see him back as he tries to play through the pain. Now, let me read some of your emails because this is fun. Negative Dan. I haven't called Dan Negative Dan in a while. He really isn't Negative Dan. He's Realistic Dan. Dan writes, almost 6 years to the day, Edwin Diaz pulls off the reverse Kurt Suzuki. Kurt Suzuki game was September 3rd, 2019. This is September 5th, so almost to the day. That is a game from 2019. Like if you told me, tell me the games you remember from 2019. To me, there are two games that jump to the top of the list. The magical win of the Todd Frazier game or the Michael Conforto game, whatever you want to call it. Frazier hits the game tying home run on a Friday night. Conforto wins it. They rip his shirt off against the Nationals in a just jammed Citi Field. But the other one is the implosion against the Nationals in September. Those are the two that, oh my God, I remember the most from that year. So yeah, and it shows you the growth of Edwin Diaz because that was the epitome of Edwin Diaz's failures in 2019. And I don't have the clip for you, but Dan also sent me the monologue Beningo and I did the day after the Kurt Suzuki game. And yeah, we can laugh at it now. I mean, we were burying Edwin Diaz. Like, the guy can't pitch here. This is one of the worst trades ever. And you can't blame us. He was so bad in 2019. It is remarkable to think about how we feel about Edwin Diaz 6 years later. Dennis writes, Evan and Hoff, it doesn't matter what happens the rest of this series. Luis Angel Acuna has to be the player of the series. His play on defense won the game. And we know what happens with a team when they blow a tough first game of the series, scoring 5 runs. See San Diego and Tampa Bay. They would have lost this series for sure without that play. Not only does it make us win the game, it will help us win 2 out of 3. Knock on wood. I didn't think about that. Not the brilliance of Acuna's play, but how the blown game against San Diego and the blown game against Tampa, while the Mets were in the middle of winning streaks, not only were bad losses that you probably explained away after the game by saying, they would do to lose, but they led to horrible things. Both of those implosions, if you will, led to losing streaks. We'll never know if the Mets lost this game, what it would have led to. But here's what I do know. If the game went extra innings, it was going to lead to bad stuff. Because we just went through the bullpen arms that you trusted. If the Mets, even at tie game in the 10th inning, even at the tie game, the runner on second rule, like, who the hell was going to pitch the bottom of the 10th inning? I mean, the Mets could have scored 2 runs in the 10th inning. We still would have probably watched them implode in the bottom of the 10th. Steven writes, I didn't like Mendy's decision to replace Beatty with Vientos for defense in the 7th. My thought was taking Vientos' bat out of the lineup, only up 1 run, would hurt us for sure. I was waiting for Beatty to pinch hit for Acuna with runners on later in the game, then have him stay on at third, move McNeil to second, and Mullins to center. If I was manager, luck singles, 2-run scores, and my son and I aren't jumping around like idiots in the basement. It goes to show good plays can make managers look good just as much as they make them look bad. Yeah, I think the explanation is you're not going to pinch hit for the better defensive player when you're leading in a game. It doesn't make sense. As much as you want to take advantage of that big opportunity, and obviously what he's referring to is a fictitious opportunity because Acuna came up in the 8th inning with 2 outs and nobody on. He never came up in that kind of spot. But even if he did, even with a 1-run lead, you don't do it. You keep your best defense out there. And Mark Vientos had a good day defensively, made a couple of good throws, especially early in the game. Made a nice play in the 1st inning, made a nice play in the 2nd inning, a couple of nice plays in the 2nd inning. So he was good defensively, but there is no question. Acuna at second, Beatty at third, and if Tyrone Taylor was healthy, I'd say Taylor in center. He's not. Cedric Mullins in center. That is their best defense. So I don't think Mendy did anything wrong. Joseph writes, please do a Rico tonight. Well, your wish is our command. We can't always do Ricos because sometimes I'm on DVR 5 hours late. Sometimes Pete Hoffman is doing something else like having a life. But we try our best. So we appreciate it if you're watching it live on YouTube or downloading the Rico Brogna. We certainly both agreed that this was a game worthy of it. No doubt about it. Peter writes, if Earl Weaver was somehow managing the 2025 New York Mets, Edwin Diaz would be arrested for manslaughter in the death of Earl Weaver. Houdini didn't get out of that ninth inning. What a weird comment. Why are we killing off Earl Weaver? Matt writes, brutal win. You could take all the positives you want out of this win. It doesn't really matter. I get it. It's just a win. It's one game out of 162 played, and you'll take any win that you can get. But this is a brutal win. This is a lucky win. This is a win that when you get it, you don't deserve multiple. Let me read this again. This is a win that you get that you don't deserve multiple balls down the first base line that are somehow foul. And I know you could say on the opposite end that Brandon Nimmo got robbed of a home run, and that's fine. But this ninth is the roller coaster of a closer that you have come in and you never really know what you're going to get. Somehow he's been Harry Houdini all year. This is not a win you should be proud of. This is not, I got to stop. I got to stop. Look, I think I admitted at the very beginning of this episode when we went through the ninth inning and the craziness of the ninth inning, I think I went through and made very clear that the New York Mets were lucky. I make no bones about it. He threw a awful slider that somehow Novelli Marte strung through, okay? He threw a fastball right down the middle to Ellie De La Cruz that somehow he took, okay? I am not going to deny that. And I have mentioned a few of the balls that were this close to being fair. But it's baseball. I mean, bleep happens. I don't think anyone is taking this game and bringing it to the Hall of Fame, but they somehow won. And I give Edwin Diaz credit for at least finding a way, even if a lot of it featured luck. So, brutal win, horrible win. You could call it whatever you want. A win is a win. Larry writes, net negative is Pete Alonso. Honorable mention to David Peterson. Brutal, but they pulled it out. Hector writes, dear Rico. I wonder if Hector thinks my name is Rico. Rico Brogna, if you're just tuning in, is the name of the podcast. He was a first baseman for the New York Mets. I loved him as a kid. He was brilliant defensively, and I loved him. So I am not Rico. I can never be a Rico. I don't look like a Rico, though I am wearing a sleeveless shirt right now, which is very odd. I do that sometimes. I will never wear this outside. I will never wear it in a public place, but I guess I'll wear it on a Rico, even if millions of people now may make fun of my horrible looking arms, and that's okay. Hector writes, dear Rico, I will never understand why Mendoza is quick to pull a starting pitcher in the middle of an inning to go to a reliever who is just as likely to give up a homer or is to get a strikeout when a ground ball pitcher is on the mound and a double play gets you out of the inning. I get it depends on multiple factors, but tonight did not warrant the change. I'm too old, I guess. Well, let's just look at tonight and not just generic other situations. David Peterson had to come out of the game. And let me tell you why, okay? He has that 11-pitch battle with Miguel Andujar to start the sixth inning. And he gives up a base hit. And Andujar came very close one pitch earlier to ripping a double. That was another one of those very close fair foul balls. But right after, rips a base hit to right field. An 11-pitch at bat for a guy in David Peterson who began the inning with a pitch count of 70. So still reasonable, but he just had an 11-pitch battle. He strikes out Austin Hayes great. He then walks Spencer Steer on 5 pitches, some of which were not close. And he does that to put the tying run in scoring position and puts the lead run on base. To me, okay, this is me, that is a sign that he is done. The pitch count of being 91 is not what puts me over the top. What puts me over the top is how he looked in that sequence to Steer, and the fact that the next hitter in Tyler Stevenson is responsible for driving multiple runs in on a 2-run double 2 innings earlier. So I think everything about what you just saw told you David Peterson was done. You're right that Ryan Stanek can easily give up a home run. You're right. I mean, I'm not going to talk up Ryan Stanek to you, but I will say that David Peterson told you with his performance in that final sequence to Spencer Steer that he was done. So I disagree with you. Josh writes, I've been thinking to myself all week, what is the benefit of recalling Francisco Alvarez with 2 injured hands? With the way the Mets offense has been producing this past month and the skill set that Alvarez brings to the table, it's only his bat. Why would you bring him back? Best case scenario, he gets a few RBIs with his injuries and doesn't negatively impact the defense. Worst case scenario, which in my mind was the most predictable, is he plays subpar defense and costs us some runs. He's a very average defensive catcher even when he's healthy. So I ask you, would you not just let him heal in the minors while the very effective Torrens-Sanger duo continue to do what they've been doing? It's currently the bottom of the 6th inning in the first game of the Red Series, and he's already cost the team 2 runs and allowed a pass ball right off his glove that moves 2 runners into scoring position. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. So there's a part of me that agrees with you, but I'll tell you the part I disagree with you about. Alvarez should be activated. Alvarez should absolutely be on this team. If he can play through the pain, I give him this opportunity. But that's where we're going to veer off here, and I will actually agree with you. This is an opportunity. This is not a guarantee he's the everyday catcher. I think that if you're Carlos Mendoza, you have to watch closely. Francisco Alvarez is only worth playing over Torrens if he is going to be a plus offensively. In the first half of the year before they sent him to the minors, he wasn't. When he got recalled, he was. And you never have enough offense, especially with this pitching staff. So if Alvarez is going to hit, play him. If Alvarez isn't, and it's tough to judge the first game, he was 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, so can't say one way or the other. I know he came up in a big spot in the 5th inning and flied out, but jury's out on him. If he hits, he's worth playing. If he doesn't hit, I agree with you. But that doesn't mean Sanger has to be here. It just means Torrens has to play. And I think that's on Carlos Mendoza. And I'll give Mendy credit for this. I think he's done a pretty good job of playing the hot hand. It's why we were seeing more of Jeff McNeil in center field. And I assume he will continue to do that. This weekend, Saturday, game 2 of this series, Jonah Tong is on the mound. In the finale of this series, Brandon Sproat is on the mound. I'm curious with young pitchers who he wants to place with whom. Torrens has been in the majors all year. Alvarez may actually have the edge working with both guys, actually specifically Sproat, because I don't know how much he's actually caught Jonah Tong. That would be a pure guess. But Alvarez spent time in the minors. I am pretty sure he's caught Brandon Sproat multiple times. So I'm curious to see if Mendy handles it that way over the weekend. But either way, I don't want to call it a great win. I'll just call it a win. And thank God they won that game, because that would have been a brutal loss if they didn't. And that would have been on the list that I've been making of awful, brutal, horrendous losses.
I heard that, early in the podcast, you mentioned that you had to go bypass Mendoza's, interview at post-game interview. You went right to Diaz to find out about sprinting over to first base. Before that, they asked about the shoe, and then they followed up with, it has nothing to do with your legs being uneven. And now, out of everything, I feel like that to me was the biggest sigh of relief, because that's the last thing we need is an uneven Edwin Diaz.
What was that? What was that again? Was that from last year, the uneven leg?
No, that was this year.
Oh, that was
I forget. It was early in the season. They pulled him, and something was wrong. And basically, it was because his legs were uneven, and they had to fix it.
I get things so confused. I could have sworn that would have been 2024, but you're telling me that was this year, the uneven leg thing?
Yes.
Look, all I know is this. Edwin Diaz, more times than not, gets the job done. This was not easy. This was very stressful, but he got the job done. And watch out for the Giants, man. They just don't lose. So that lead is still only 4. I think we all viewed the Cincy series and said, hey, just take care of the Reds and bury them. Now, the other factor that we have to mention is San Diego. The Padres are collapsing, and so the Mets are now tied with San Diego. As far as the tiebreaker with the Padres is concerned, because I think it's worthy of discussing, the Mets still have 3 games with San Diego. So they could obviously beat the crap out of them and pass them for that second wild card spot. 2 factors. Number 1, the Padres swept the Mets in San Diego. So the Mets would have to sweep the Padres at Citi to even up the tiebreaker, and then it would come down to divisional record, where currently the Padres are a game ahead of the Mets in terms of their record against their division and the Mets' record against theirs. But if the Mets sweep the Padres to even it up, it's likely they've gone ahead of them. So if the Padres win 1 game in that series, then San Diego has the tiebreaker. So that's the tiebreak scenario with them. The other thing is, and this is a pick your poison situation that we will spend a lot more time discussing, if the Mets get the second wild card spot, they would be matched up against the Chicago Cubs in the first round of the postseason. Not the Dodgers and not the Phillies, who currently they are kind of bracketed up against. If you're one that likes to look ahead, that would mean it's the Cubs, and if they beat the Cubs, Milwaukee, which, respectfully or not, I think most people are going to view as the softer bracket than going through LA, Philadelphia, or Philadelphia, LA. And I understand that. I'm not a believer in this anymore. Like, I don't really love picking our opponents because I think in a short series, it doesn't mean anything. I think the Mets' ownage of the Philadelphia Phillies means nothing, just like the Padres' ownage of us doesn't mean anything. I think getting the second wild card spot is overrated. I think if we're talking about the first wild card spot, obviously it's a different discussion because you get home field advantage. But in terms of, hey, Evan, do you want the second wild card spot? I just want to get in. Now, obviously, passing San Diego gives the Mets more room. It isn't just keeping an eye on the Giants. It's, hey, the Padres could just fall apart. The Giants could make the playoffs, and it would be the Padres who miss it. But in terms of, do I have a preference over wild card 2 versus wild card 1, I'd say no. And I could also argue, because I do feel this way, you have a better chance of beating the better teams in a shorter series. Because I think in a longer series, the better team has a better chance of winning. And despite what win-loss records say, I do believe the Dodgers and the Phillies are better than the Cubs and the Brewers.
How about the Mets? Are they better than the Mets?
Is who better than the Mets?
Well, the Phillies and the Dodgers.
I don't know. Probably. I mean, you want me to be honest with you? Probably. I mean, right now, the Mets have 1 starting pitcher that we trust and 2.5 relievers that we trust. So, yeah, I'd say the answer is no, but we got a month. And all that matters is once you get to the tournament, just playing your best baseball at the right time.
This has been a very heavy Diaz podcast, but I don't know if you mentioned one thing. His brother was DFA'd from the Dodgers.
Bring him in.
Yep. Okay, good. I think it'd be great. I think they'd be tag teams. They traded off here and there. I think that his brother would feel much more confident knowing that he's got Edwin here. I got no.
It's not even about that. Though that's sweet and that's wonderful. Currently, the New York Mets bullpen features Wander Suero and Justin Hagenman. Okay? Now, that's going to change because Reed Garrett's on a rehab assignment, so he could come back soon. They're obviously going to have to make a roster move for Brandon Sproat on Sunday. But, yeah, throw them all in. Now, keep this in mind about Alexis Diaz because this is actually pretty important. They can bring him in. He would not be eligible for the postseason because it is after September 1st. So bringing him in would be to take a look at him. Maybe Edwin feels comfortable, and maybe he can help them secure a postseason spot. Like, this thing isn't over yet, obviously. So,
hey, dude, Joey Lucchesi last year, he got them through 162. Game didn't matter, but they didn't have to waste any more arms going into the playoffs.
Absolutely. One last note. I got a great email from Robert. Robert writes, I'm obviously not the first person to have told you this, or maybe you've noticed it yourself. But look at this Hall of Famer's middle name. And of course, he's referring to the former Philadelphia Philly, Robin Roberts, who is a Hall of Famer. Robin Roberts' middle name is Evan. And so, yes, I've noticed it, Robert. And not only that, and I'm going to email this back to him personally. When I've gone to the Hall of Fame, and I've done this numerous times, I will lean against Robin Roberts' plaque, but I will lean against the Robin so that it says Evan Roberts. So yes, I get a kick out of that every time I go to Cooperstown. The closest I'll ever get to the Hall of Fame. We appreciate you listening to this Rico Brogna, an instant reaction episode 543. Whether you did it live on a very late Friday night, Saturday morning on YouTube, thank you. Or you downloaded the podcast, it is appreciated. Make sure you subscribe because, like you saw right now, you never know when we're going to pop in an instant reaction Rico Brogna. Of course, we will have a series recap coming up at some point Sunday night after this series concludes against Cincinnati. Thank you for hanging out with us on Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.